What's happening, everybody? George here with Rebound Fitness, and what I'm going to be showing you today is the kettlebell jerk press in this sports style of the kettlebell. And I'm going to look at the top 5 mistakes that people make when they're doing this. And if you are getting into this movement, or you're about to, just a couple of things to keep in mind. Kettlebell sport is awesome for doing a couple of different things for you. So you can be working on building your strength, endurance, tendons, and ligament strength while getting a good anaerobic workout. So it's a time-efficient form of training. So we'll look at the top 5 mistakes that we notice when people with experience or some experience come in and train with us, or even just when you're brand new and starting. So we're going to look at how to place them first. So if you look, my wrist is all the way in through to the kettlebell. It's completely straight, and the handle is going to come diagonally down. So once I clean it into the rack position, so if we're starting from the bottom, I can set it and adjust it before I start my set. So as we can see, they're all the way diagonal, my wrists are straight. I like to put my fingers behind. Some you can cup as well when you're resting. But the big thing that we see is the hands don't come in the proper placement position, so you'll have that happen. And over time, what ends up happening is your wrist extenders will fatigue. So to avoid that and to get the most out of it, I want to keep it in straight. Now, where the elbow is going to come is, it can't come out to the side. You have to keep it directly in line with its wrist. So when I rack it, I can cup and I can put the elbows and rest them against my hand. So when I'm in the rack, that's where I'm allowed to rest, or overhead. Now, when I'm in this position, again, a couple of things to keep in mind is I want to leverage. Because the kettlebell is pulling me out to the side, I can grab with the bottom hand on the top kettlebell, grip it, and then press the elbows into my belly. So here, I'm resting and I'm actually quite comfortable, right? Well, as comfortable as you're going to be with 45 pounds in hand, but I'm able to kind of catch my breath before I continue my set. So the thing to keep in mind is not to have the elbow too far away from the wrist, this. So you want to have it in nice and tight, and you want to sit with. Okay, so now we've looked at the positioning. We're going to look at the rack next and how to actually get the hips set in properly. So when the bells are in position, what ends up happening is a lot of times, instead of resting through the upper back and having the elbows press into the abdomen, the hip comes forward, so the elbows slide off to the side. So you're not getting a whole lot of rest there. Plus, you're not able to launch the bells overhead very efficiently either. So I'll show you. So once I'm in, is you have it, and then sitting forward like this. So now I have a lot of strain on my lower back. Not a good idea. Instead, what you want is you want a slight bend in the knee, and then you want to relax your upper back. So now I'm in position, and my abdomen is the one where the elbows are resting against. So not out to the side where my lower back is taking all the pressure. So moving on to point number 3. Now that we have a proper set, so the bells are in, proper positioning, I'm relaxed, upper back is the one that's rolled, my hips not too far forward, I have a slight bend in the knee. Okay, when I'm pressing, so I'll step back to show you guys, the heel's coming off the ground too soon. So it would look like this. So what we want to do is stay positioned in the rack, a small bend in the knee, and then I want to launch from the heel, keeping the elbows in tight. So again, coming back, this is what happens. This also is a compounded mistake from having the elbows too wide and being here. So now the weight wants to slide forward. So the way to correct that is by mistake number 2 we looked at, correcting how you're actually positioned. So when I'm positioned in this position here properly, now I can load into my heels and then drive to my hip to get the bells overhead. So once again, positioning, I'm going to push into the heel and press from the heel. So it looks like this. to point number 4, and that's going to be the elbows flaring. So once you're pressing the bells, once you're in position and you're lined up, once the fatigue starts kicking in, that's where you have to hold the most composition, and you have to stay the most focused, right? The fatigue will start taking your mind off, your breathing gets disrupted. So to stay and be able to do it as long as possible and get the longest amount of reps, you have to have your efficiency in check the whole time. So once I'm in my rack position, I have the bells in proper setting. When I'm launching, I don't want the elbows to split too soon. It's extra amount of work. Everything to do with this is about efficiency. You have to be as efficient as possible. The smallest mistake will cause you a compound down the line, and it'll prevent you from getting your most amount of reps that you possibly could get. So the bells flaring comes from 2 reasons. One is if you're dominant in the shoulders and you have a strong upper body, you'll tend to want to muscle it. Everything to do with this type of training is using the momentum, being, again, fully efficient, and that's how you're going to be able to get the most out of it, the longest time. These sets are up to 10 minutes. Some guys can go outside of the 10 minutes. So to be able to get most of this, you can't have any mistakes that will cause you to have to stop, or any discomfort. Now, you have to be comfortable being discomfortable in this case, because you are building strength in it. So it's not going to be a pleasant thing. You're going to have to push through. But with that being said, if your forearms or your shoulders are burning to the point where you physically can't hold them anymore, that's it. The music stops. So let's take a look. So elbows flaring, what's going to happen is if I'm pushing too much with the shoulders and they're not coming in a straight line over my head, again, this will come mainly due to fatigue or to just having a strong upper body and being dominant and wanting to just press it. So coming out and then flaring out. So why that happens is the bells are released too soon, before the press comes up. So I want to hold on to them for as long as I can, and I'm never going to interlock my fingers because they can get stuck trying to launch over your head. Instead, what I want is I want to keep it nice and tight, focused. Knees are bent slightly, and as I press, I'm going to keep the elbows in as tight as I can to launch it. And I'm not doing any work with my shoulders. All my arms are doing is doing the stabilization. Where the pressing is coming from is the hips and the legs. So coming back down, I also want to bring them in tight. So the elbows flaring out, again, comes from not driving hard enough from the legs. Versus, which is much harder, and the bells travel a much larger distance. Okay, and that brings us up to point number 5 now. As we're bringing the bells overhead, now, just as important as having him launch and stabilizing him overhead, coming back down is going to be the other half of the work. So, coming down inefficiently will cause you just as much problems as muscling the weight up. And so what the hop does is you're actually cutting the distance that the bells have to travel to get back to your rack. So as I'm up in this position, I'll twist, I'll fold the elbows, and I'll bring my hip closer to the elbows so I can cushion them and absorb them so they're not coming down heavy. If you're sitting and moving the elbows in and then having to lower them slowly, again, you're using strength, eccentric strength, which will tax you, as opposed to letting it and catching it with your hip, and then breathing out as you catch it. So I'll do a couple of reps. I'll show you what it looks like when you land it nice and clean, and then we'll look at just a couple of slow down, more hesitant reps. So, coming up, I want to have the bells in the proper position. I'm in, I launch the bells, okay, and now I'm going to lean back and absorb them. So I can turn off my arms completely. Keeping them in tight. Now if we're watching it, if we're going up and then coming down wide, so wide, I have to bring them down drastically and then bring them back into position. Again, traveling a much longer distance and having to force them back in. So doing the extra work that is going to tax you in the long run. Okay, so there's the 5 mistakes. Try with lighter bells first. If you're brand new to this and learning off YouTube, so you want to practice and work on a couple of basic fundamental things I didn't mention in here, and that's the breathing. And you're breathing here every time you make a maneuver. So I exhale at the top and I exhale when I catch it. So that's going to help you with staying relaxed and tightening just at the right time. So a lot of it's got the timing in it, and it's got about being relaxed and only tensing up when you really need to, which is the main part of the lift. So if I'm here, I have to tense up right before I launch the bells, keeping my arms fully relaxed and then stabilizing the bells overhead. Stay tuned, we'll break up some more information on the jerk press, looking at shoulder mobility, looking at shoulder stabilization, and how to actually get good at this maneuver.